Hello and welcome to my retro watches. I'm back at the bench, ready to repair the next watch, which is this one right here. This is going to be the first Omega automatic that's ever been on the channel. Now, this has been sent in from my friend who's now a celebrity on the channel, Nick Dodd. He's the guy that gave us the Seawolf, which was a horrible basket case to work on. And then he also gave us the Marvin, which I did recently, and that equally was quite difficult. And he's managed to find this Omega. It's a bumper. I'll show you what that is in a moment. It doesn't work at all, and I need to find out why. And hopefully, and I mean hopefully, it's just going to need a service, because I don't have a good record with Omega. I've fixed quite a few for friends and some guys in the group, and they always seem to have more problems than I would like. Sometimes they come back because I haven't fixed them quite right. Parts are always very scarce because it's like a cartel coming out of Switzerland now, try and get the parts that you might need. So I'm hoping this one's going to be more forgiving and I'm not going to embarrass myself on my own channel. Just to celebrate, I've actually put on my own Omega. This is the only one I own. This is the Seamaster Cosmic, as you can see. Absolute cracking watch. Bought it quite a few years ago, actually, when I first started collecting. And it's the only watch that I've ever paid somebody else to service. So it's before I learnt how to do it myself. And I paid somebody money to do this one. Did a great job. And it still runs really, really well. So one other thing to quickly look out for on this one. And well, actually, I'll show it you probably when I get out the case. I would think that these numerals and the hand loom is probably radium. So I'm going to have to be very careful with those because I don't like anything radioactive. So they'll be kept and stored away completely separately to everything else. So here we are with the case back off and get a first glance at the movement. And I'll quickly show you the case back. Got it upside down. There it is. There is a service mark here by my thumb, and there's another one just at the top there. But that's the only ones I can see. Now, I can't date Omegas, but I found a website that said it could. So I put in this number that's on the movement there, and it came back and suggested to me that it's 1944. So if that's true, great, leave it in the comments. If it's false and I've got it completely wrong, then be nice to know how old this watch is. So a bumper is basically an automatic with a rotor that doesn't go round and round. It kind of works on a ratchet system. I've only ever worked on one bumper ever. So that one didn't go too well either, but that's another story. So what it will do is it'll rotate and it'll bounce off these springs like so. Although that spring looks a bit dead compared to that one. And that will wind the mainspring, so that gives it its automatic movement. So we'll be taking all this off, of course, and having a good look at how it all works. With it being the first time I've been hit one of these, I think I may have bitten off more I can chew to try and film it, but I always do that in all of my videos, so there'll be no change really there. So just bring it up to the camera a little bit closer so you can see it. So perhaps I'll put it on the microscope in a little while. Just trying to see. See, the bumper does go around. It's because of the way I'm holding it. So the main thing to do, of course, is to get the movement out of the case. Okay, crown is a bit stuck. That's interesting. Look, I'm moving the crown. I don't know if you can see that. See the balance? Sorry, my auto lock is not on. So it is showing some light. So I wonder if the balance is just gone past, and just gone past the what you call it, the pallet fork. That's interesting. No, that seems to be spinning all right actually. Okay, well I need to get the crown out, don't I? That's still being very stubborn. So the crown and stem have been removed, and I'm now wondering whether this is the correct stem. It was so difficult to get out. Quite clearly, in my opinion, it's not focusing, that crown is a replacement for certain. There's no way that's a 1940s crown, and I would expect to see it signed as well. So at some point that has been replaced. So let's try and ease it out. Hopefully if I just turn it over, it's going to drop, and it is. There we go. So now we can look at that dial a little bit more. It's a bit of patina, but in the main it does look quite nice. So I need to remove those hands. Okay, the dial has been removed, and there you can see, I think that's pretty conclusive that it's quite possibly radium. There is not much on the back. There are some numbers, but I think it's patinaed quite nicely. So I'm going to put that little plastic pot on its own out the way. Okay, so we'll start on the dial side here with the motion works, and all looks pretty straightforward to me. Good, because it's got no date complication. So just a simple setup. We've got 2 screws on the set and lever spring here, and the keyless works look pretty straightforward. Now, if you do see the difference in light, so I'm having to block my light slightly because we've got this slight angle to the case back, and it reflects like crazy. So much so that I couldn't really film it. So I've had to put a piece of cardboard, of all things, just to make the image look a bit better for you guys. So out comes the yoke. We've then got the spring and the winding pinion and the clutch come out together, but they are separate pieces. And the setting lever spring, because it's on a screw on the other side, I won't remove that just yet. And of course we have the cannon pinion, and for that I'll just use my Presto tool. Like so. So there we are. That is complete on that side. Nice and straightforward. I leave the jewels in for cleaning. I will take these out and clean them separately after it's been through the cleaning machine. So this is the trickier side, of course, and just looking again, if I move this, I'll just point out what I'm looking for. I am seeing it ratchet. So I see the ratchet wheel is going round. It would wind as well. So it could be that there's a fault with the mainspring and there's no power. And the only way really to test that would be to take the balance off, which I guess I'm going to do, but I need to take this rotor off first and sort of get an idea of how this is working. Perhaps this isn't even in the right place. It seems to always want to sit kind of here by default. But not knowing enough about bumpers, perhaps I should have tried to pull the data sheet on this one, but at the moment I still don't actually know what the movement number is. So we'll disassemble this part and have a look underneath there. The one thing I like and don't like about Omega is they use beautiful screws. They're always really highly polished. They seem to have very thin slots, so you need sharp screwdrivers. And obviously they show any mistake you make as an amateur, it's going to show up on the screw. And on this one I'm already having trouble. There we go. I've got to have the wrong size screwdriver, which is a bit annoying. And I've just realized that all your guys are seeing is my finger, of course. So remove that bit first. We've got a screw here and a screw there, and hopefully that removes all of that plate. Well, that made it move, didn't it? Just a little gentle touch. So let's take that off. Try not to knock the camera. And let's have a look in here. So I can see a spring here, which looks a bit tricky actually, which is on that. It's loading the ratchet here for this thing. Now it's all moved, which doesn't help me at all. So hopefully these are in the right positions, because if they're not, then I'm in a little bit of trouble. And then is there any other springs that I don't know about? So just to be sure, I'm going to cover that one off. That's definitely got a firm grip on it from, there we go. So the moment I move that, of course. Okay, I've knocked the camera again. My apologies, guys. Just take my lock off and bring that up. So that is an interesting part. There's another little ratchet there with a very delicate little spring. And that is, by the looks of it, yeah, that's pinned. So that's not too bad. I can possibly clean that as one. We'll get back to that later. So now, hopefully, the rotor might just lift off with the power of a bit of Rodico, and of course it does. There we go. So I'm pleased about that, other than this ratchet thing here that I've got to remove. And obviously it is got that spring attached to it as well. That's one interesting spring. I'm sorry if you were out of focus for all of that. I do apologise. So there we go. We can see a bit more. Obviously the key thing would be to try and wind the mainspring down. But I'm keen now just to stick it on the microscope, see if we can see anything a little bit close up. So here we are on the microscope, and obviously looking at it. Sorry about the dazzle again, it just doesn't like the reflection of the gold or the bronze colour. But firstly, the jewel holes, let's see if I can get them a bit more in focus. You know, bit of dried oil, but nothing that would stand out as saying that that's what's stopping it. It was a bit too dark in the light there. It's a bit better, isn't it? Hairspring looks okay. So definitely interesting. Just trying to find my tweezers. So let's see if I... So what can we see going on there? So I'm not really seeing the pallet fork do anything at all. So perhaps it has jumped, who knows. Don't think it's the mainspring. You can find that out by trying to let down some of the tension. So let's get back under the camera on the bench and explore those ideas. So the next thing to try is that mainspring. So just going to put the screwdriver in the ratchet screw. Turns quite freely. And we're just going to move the click to one side and see, and there we go. There's plenty of power in that. It's not whizzing around, but I don't know when it was last serviced. but it's taking some power. So with that in mind, let's try to remove that balance wheel. So now we've got a clear view of that pallet fork and the escape, and there does look to be, I'm going to get really close in, let's see how close we can go. So there's some tarnish or something there on the fork. The jewels, well, they look okay, it's not like they're cracked or anything. And then if we try to, this is going to be a bit more difficult for me to do under this magnification. So it ticks that way. Doesn't tick the other way very well, look, at all. And there's whatever that gunk is, it almost looks like battery acid, you know, from a digital watch. It's actually on the banking pin there. So is it just dirt? Quite possibly. Now I can't see the let me wind out. Okay, so let's just do it in full screen so we can see what's going on. Yeah, it really doesn't want to do. So there's no power coming through the train of any magnitude. So maybe it is dirt. Now we've got some better light. Just double check those jewels again for anything obvious, but nope. I can't see anything. So let's just strip it all down. Hopefully something might come more apparent as we progress. So worth noting as well that on this particular screw, or on the pallet cock itself, that is quite damaged. Somebody's really slipped with the screwdriver there at some point. Just noting that. So let's disassemble. Of course, need to let the mainspring down first. I'll do that now off camera. So I've just removed the crown wheel there, and what you can see here is magnetism, lots of it, look. So that could be playing a part as well in this movement, so it'll all need to be demagnetized. So for now as well, I'm going to leave the click spring in place and just remove the entire bridge. Okay, and my probably obvious to you, I didn't notice it, that bridge is actually going under the wheel there as well. So I'm going to have a hard, well actually it's the barrel, isn't it? What am I talking about? So the barrel arbor just seems to be, there we go, it's just a bit jammed, probably a bit gunked up with oil. So a very small plate on the top here, which I will remove. So these tiny screws were not even finger tight, and magnetized as well, which is going to cause me a massive headache because I don't want to lose them. It doesn't seem to be an obvious place to lift that. I think there is just a tiny slot just here. Yep. Okay, so now the main train bridge, 3 screws. So these screws were barely finger tight. So it all starts pointing in the direction of it's magnetized, it's loose, not running very well at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find some gunk under here as well. Looks okay. So let's put the train back under the scope just for the hell of it, see what we can see. So here we are, and I can't actually see much obvious. There's definitely, let's get something to point again, there's definitely some gunk or something down there, but I don't think that'll be playing a part. Perhaps if we try and remove, I can't remove that wheel just yet because that's, oh I can, there we go. So yes, that's, I don't know what that is. But so far, nothing obvious. Well, there's a giant hair there. That won't be helping it at all. See that? All caught up in the wheel. And the escape, as much as it's sitting on an angle, doesn't look bad at all. Right, so the plot thickens. There is nothing that I could say is obvious at this particular point. There's that damage I was talking about, look. Pretty horrific. So I'll remove the pallet fork anyway. Maybe it's got something to do with that, with all that crap that's on it. And of course we have the barrel, so we'll just try and see if I can get hold of that. Yeah, the arbor looks, or the hole, that looks fine, doesn't it? The bearing there. Okay, well, I'll remove that, and finally we have some sort of movement reference, look. So 30, what is that? 3010RA RC. Okay, I'll make a note of that and see what that comes up with. So there we go, that's the pallet fork out. And that's the movement strip down, really. I'm going to leave those springs in place for now and just put all this through the cleaner. I found that everything seems to be magnetised. I went to put the escape wheel into the storage container. I'm just going to try and bring it out again. Now, I've already demagged my screwdriver, my tweezers, and as you can see, look. So magnetism is definitely playing a massive part in this movement, along with loose screws. So who knows, it might be just a case of clean it, put it back together, and it's going to run. So let's clean it up, and then we'll do the rebuild. Okay guys, so instead of doing a cleaning montage in this video, I wanted to talk about radium dials and what I do with a radium dial, because I've not had many at all. I tend to steer clear of them for obvious reasons. This thing is potentially radioactive and potentially harmful. But I'm not here to tell you the ins and outs of all of that. I'm not qualified at all. All I can tell you is how I'm going to handle it, and also to show you a little device that a guy called Neil Whitchurch sent me. Now, he is a subscriber. I posted in the community tab the other day about this particular watch. He kindly sent me this little device, which is called Smart Geiger, as you can see the box here. And if I can find it, perhaps I'll put a link below as well in case anybody wants to pick them up. Now, I won't expect too much from these. I've read a few reviews already and watched some on YouTube with varying results. In that, the reliability of the reading is probably not so good. But as a tool to actually decipher whether your dial is either tritium or certainly radium, this is going to show it. So I'm going to set it up and I'm going to give you a little demonstration. So just to sort of ease anyone's conscience, my understanding is as long as you don't disturb the dial or the loom, should we say, and crumble it in any way and ingest it, you should be fine. Now, I am seriously overcautious because I can get pretty anxious at times, and this is the sort of thing that would send my anxiety through the roof. So I still wear some finger cots. I've also got a mask on, just not taking any chances at all with my health. Might be a bit over the top. It's best to store the dial and the hands in a container, of course, while you're not using it or working on it, sorry. And potentially I won't use this container again, or I'll keep it again in case I need to do another radium dial. So we're going to open this up now. I've already opened it up to let it breathe, because again, I've been told that the gas can build up in there and you don't want to be breathing that in. My head's quite far away. Of course, some of you know I do all my videos in my garage, and in here it's only about 8 degrees Celsius at the moment, and there's plenty of air coming through. So all the precautions taken. Maybe I'm being over precautious, but I don't think you should with your own health. So we're going to show the dial. This obviously is an app for the thing, and honestly, I don't know how these things work. I don't know anything about physics. I didn't do it at school at all. But what we do is we're going to start the monitor, and it just looks at the moment at background, and it tends to stay at that reading of 0.1. And if we get the meter, now this just is a normal jack, but because this is an iPhone, you've got to use one of these funny little leads. And if we just put that over this, it doesn't pick up much. You can just see it starting to go there. Certainly from the sides, it doesn't really do anything. It's when you point it up and down that it has an effect. Now I'm just going to see if we can get this a bit better on camera. So just excuse me, because I'm doing it on the fly. So if we point that into here, then straight away you can see that the meter is going to go up. And I wouldn't know what is a safe reading and what isn't, but some things I've watched on the internet, people get these things going right up to over 100 with different objects, not watch dials. And they also say that the little chamber thing that's in the end of this can get flooded, and that can just overload it basically. But as we can see, we're getting a bit hot, and just to see that reading for me is enough to know what I'm dealing with. And I think that's what you could use this device for, is just to reassure yourself that it is either a tritium or a radium dial, certainly a radium dial, and that you need to handle it with a bit of care. So again, you know, if I try to go really close to the indice, it's still trying to push up. As you can see, it's galloping away. But I don't think it's particularly dangerous. Again, any of you guys know more about this, I'd be really, really interested to see what you're going to say in the comments. Of course, some of you might tell me I'm going to die now, but please don't, because again, that will send my anxiety through the damn roof. So there we go. We're just seeing good readings. It is an interesting little device. I can fool it. So if I just close this for now and press stop on the app and then start again, of course we go straight back to 0.1. And if I tap this on the end, I can get it to go. And there's obviously a normal reason for that. That's not picking up anything. It's obviously the pressure perhaps that I'm doing. But what made me laugh is that when I got this, I decided to check all of my watches, and I was inside my watch box, certainly with my older watches like my 60s watches, which I'm generally been 99% sure that I didn't have any radium at all. And of course I'm handling this and I'm dangling it down and I'm touching it onto the crystal and sometimes a little bit of the case. And then when I'm doing that, I'm getting a count. And I'm getting really worried. I was doing some Seikos, for instance, and I was starting to get little mini readings of Seikos. And I was thinking, I'm going to die now because I've reloomed so many Seiko movements in my life without wearing any protection, because I've always understood that certainly 70s Seikos would be very, very safe. But here's me doubting myself again, because just tapping it, I mean, I'm going to tap it on the table now. And here we go. You see, it's every now and again you get that false reading. So again, if you're going to get one of these, it is purely a guide. Don't go off what it's going to tell you and learn from that I've just learned, really. It's It might be really straightforward to you lot, but as I say, I don't know anything about these things, so I don't want to tell you much. Of course, I've got this on a tissue as well. I haven't taken the dial out as it stands, but I didn't want to dirty anything that I normally work with, to be sure. One thing I'll just try to do quickly as well, I'll just set it up, is we'll have a look at a few of the parts. So it's mainly the main plate, for instance, and we'll just see, because there's obviously a chance that some of the loom could have crumbled off this, could have ended up in the movement, couldn't it? And you know, that could be again a little bit worrying if you're going to wash it and how you're going to wash it and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to test a few parts and see how we get on with that. So here we are, we've got the main plate. This is dial up position, of course. We've got the rotor, just because it's a big object, and one of the train bridges there as well. So my assumption would be perhaps you're going to see, well, you could see something on anything, couldn't you? Let's face it. So I'm going to start the software, and I'm just going to dangle this again above. I'm just going to move it around. I know all you're going to see really is my fingers and a dazzle off the phone, but we're just looking for any sort of blip, and we're not getting anything there, are we? Move on to this part, because clearly, you know, when you put it near the dial, it goes off absolutely straight away. Again, I'll just bring the dial down, even in its plastic box. Oops, I'm off the camera. You can see straight away, look, it's picking it up. So for that reason, it's, you know, it's pretty good. I mean, I should do this with all the parts, I guess, just to be 100% sure. But, you know, not picking up anything from these, which is a good sign. It means the loom is intact, hasn't crumbled away, hasn't got into the movement, or it's been cleaned off on another previous service. So I'd be safe to just put this through the cleaning machine without any additional cleaning and trying to dispose of any cleaning fluids in a safe manner, really. So there we go. That's just a little bit of education. Again, I'd love to hear your tips, your suggestions, how you deal with these things, how dangerous you perceive them, etc., etc. I think it's be good information for anybody who's in this hobby as to what to do when you encounter these sort of dials. Thought I'd end. Why not just check as well the inside of the case, because that's an obvious place to check. And I'm even off the screen. Well done. So yeah, again, nothing that would alarm me on the inside of the case. And then the case back. Not doing very well with the shot here, am I? But just gives you a bit more, certainly me, a bit more assurance that everything is okay there. Just thought you might ask that in the comments, because I know what you're all like. So there we go. I think we're going to be safe, and I'll be all right to service this watch. Okay, so before I rebuild the movement, there's a few things I need to do, which is, of course, wind the mainspring back into the barrel. And in these baskets here, I've got various parts that were magnetized. So I've cleaned them all first, kept them in the baskets because it's a bit easier to demagnetize. And just got one of these basic cheap demagnetizers, all the way from AliExpress probably, or eBay, I can't remember now. It does the job well. I do recommend, if you've got one of these, not to leave it plugged in all the time, because there has been reports of some of these melting. So not perfect. Unfortunately, I switch my power off every time I leave my desk anyway. So all I'm going to do with this, you press this button. In theory, a little red light comes on here, which you can probably only just see. And the idea of demagnetizing, if you don't know, because I'm sure quite a few of you do, is I'm going to put the basket on there with the parts. I'm going to press the button. You can hear it and you can feel it buzzing. And I'm going to lift the parts away. Now lift them up really quite far. Let go of the button, bring it back down. Do it again. And again. And each time I'm doing that, I'm just taking it up a little bit. And do that 5 or 6 times. And realistically, that should be it. So again, there's a lot of metal in this one. I can feel it. Let me just pulse it, and that's all we have to do until you've disrupted all of those electrons and got rid of the magnetism. Of course, it's easy to check because you're just going to get a pair of tweezers, your steel tweezers, in my case the ones that you're stuck to. Of course, make sure your tweezers are also demagnetized, because otherwise you'll just put magnetism back in. And then once you're happy with that, obviously we can carry on with the build, and if anything sticks to these when I rebuild, then you know that I haven't done the job correctly. So let's get on with this rebuild. I'm hoping for no problems really. It's a fairly basic movement. I have to say that Omega parts always clean up really, really nicely. This is probably not coming over very well on camera because I've got a lot of reflection because of the angles of this case and the placing of my lighting. I'm also hoping it's coming out fairly sharp in picture and clarity, but I can't always guarantee that, certainly with my normal eyesight. I am actually trying to save up for a much better DSLR camera, but I've been frightened by the sheer price of those, and then along with the lens that I'm going to need to try and up my game again for you guys so that we can get some much better macro shots. But hopefully that might happen this year. So I'm just oiling with some D5 the main barrel arbor port there, arbor bearing, whatever you want to call it. So we'll start now with the train. Of course, we have the escape. And then we have the next wheel. And just got to make sure I get the right one, because it's the one that has the seconds hand attached to it. And I've got a thread. There's a long staff on this one, and I've got to thread it through a hole, which is never easy because I can't see where the hole is. There we go. So lucky on that one. And then this wheel will just place on top. Now these wheels, like I say, have cleaned up really nicely, and I guess that's what you get when you're buying or working on a better brand. Nicer looking, better parts. So the center wheel, I'm just thinking about what to do because there's no jewel on here, but I guess it's still going to be a bit of a friction point because I haven't got a manual. So again, I'm just going to put a little bit of D5 actually just on the edge there. Hopefully you might be able to see that. Just a touch. It might be wrong, but I don't think it will harm. So then we can just drop that. I say we can just drop it. Just place that in there like so. Okay, so first bridge to do will of course be the train bridge. And for this one, I've got to try and remember how it actually goes. So it's something like there. I feel like I've got shaky hands tonight as well, which doesn't help. So yes, it does go across there. But I'm out somewhere and I can't see. I'm taking it off screen. I can't see where it is. Yes, good start. As I say in all my videos, you see the mistakes as they happen. I wouldn't say this is a mistake. Oops. I wouldn't say it's a mistake. It's just remembering we're actually some weeks apart from the cleaning to the rebuild. I've had other things on, other projects to do as well for other people and myself. So sometimes you can't quite remember where the parts go. And there's no exception with this today. Right, I'm going to start again. And we're definitely not sitting in any real position there. There we go. So the bridge is on finally. That was a bit of a bit interesting, should we say. Right, I've got a couple of screws to put in there and then we'll carry on. So now time for the barrel bridge, and that's in theory a lot easier to place because we haven't got the pivots that we have to line up. So I can look finally like a bit of an expert. So there we go, that's gone straight on. Once again, 2 screws. So now that's on. I said 2 screws, but there was actually 3. Now I have been cheating a little bit, certainly on more watches recently, in that I tend to keep leaving the click in position because sometimes the springs are an absolute devil. This one included on this particular movement. And I figure I don't clean with any water liquids anymore. It's all waterless cleaning solution, so there's no risk of any rust, and of course it gets a good wash and it also gets a good dry. So I leave it in position, makes it a bit easier to film as well because click springs sometimes can be a real pain, but equally it makes that assembly a little bit better. And if you are just getting into this hobby, some of those sort of springs can possibly demoralize you, certainly if you lose them. So a little way to cut corners here and there that aren't really on vital parts where cleaning is absolutely essential. So okay, I've just got to tighten that screw up. So the screw is in place. I can just see if I can do it for you. Just give it a little bit of wind and you can hear the wheels going, so you know everything's good with the train. So before I start putting the crown wheel on and so on and so forth, let's just get the pallet fork in and eventually the balance as well, and we can quickly test if it's actually going to run, because that's the most important part at this stage. It was not running before we took it apart, so can we get it to run now? Now the pallet fork I usually like to do on the microscope, but I just thought I'd try it on the bench here now. That actually feels like it might have just found its place. Then again, has it? It's quite an awkward bridge to put on. And I'm just messing around there. That's no good at all. I can't, to be honest, can't see very well. So I'm always hampered. But it's a particularly awful. I should have put it on perhaps before I even put the centre wheel in there, because it's really hampering everything, isn't it? Look. Ah. So of course in these moments, keep calm. So the pallet bridge, it is a bridge, seeing as it's got 2 screws, is in situ. It's the fork that I'm now worried about. So I'll just check that on the microscope quickly. I will be filming on the microscope when it comes to oiling, so don't feel you're missing out on anything. Okay, luckily it is actually sitting in its right position. So again, I've just got to put the 2 screws in, and then we can put some wind in and hopefully fit the balance. So we're in business. We have that pallet fork clicking over really nicely, and of course it wasn't doing that on the disassembly so well. So it could be the moment of truth. Has just cleaning this movement been enough to at least get it to run? And I think I've just overbanked that a little bit, or have I? Still not sitting down properly, but it seems to be in the right place. There, it is wanting to go, so let's get the screw in place. Perhaps that's all it needs. I'm being a little bit tentative. There we go, we've got power. It is running. Okay, the amplitude looks to me, I don't know, might be a little bit low, it's hard to say, but of course I've not oiled any of the jewels yet at all. But to see it run, I never ever well, I always love this part. Well, I don't know what I was going to say, I've lost my train of thought. This is the best part about this hobby, is taking a non-running watch, doing what I've just done, and seeing it power up again. I never gets bored of it, always love it, and especially on this one as well, because so far it hasn't caused me any problems. So really, really good. We can continue on, and let's get the rest of this built. So here we are on the time grapher, and you can see that the watch is running awful. So bad, in fact, that it's almost, well, the time grapher doesn't know what to do with itself, I don't think, because these readings, I think, are completely erroneous. I've tried to keep the movement in focus for you because essentially the balance, in my opinion, is not moving anywhere near, certainly hasn't got 230 amplitude. Don't even think it's probably got 100 amplitude, to be honest with you. And there's a reason for that, or at least I think there's a reason for that, and I'll just try to show you. So on the bench here, if I just try to put the screwdriver in here, I realise I'm going to lose focus. And if I just try to wind that, essentially all that happens is it winds and winds and winds. Never really, I feel, much resistance. There's power going in, but not a lot. So to me, the mainspring was either set or it's just got a bit of a problem. So I bought another one. That's why it's taken 3 or 4 days to get back to filming, and we're going to install that, and I'll see if that makes any difference. I really hope it does, because otherwise I've got to start fault finding. The new mainspring is fitted, and we're getting a bit more of a respectable trace now. Yeah, there's some little background noise, but I've got to oil everything, but I'm a lot more pleased with that. I'm not sure whether you're going to see that there, but it does look a lot more healthy as well. So clearly it's got a bit more power going through it now, only a good thing. So I'm going to go to the scope now. We'll just oil all the main points, and then we can carry on and hopefully get all the keyless works in. Okay, so the shock jewel there I've already done. This one here is the pallet, so of course I'm not going to oil the pallet. Now we do have sort of bad reflections again. It doesn't like this camera picking up these sort of bronzy, goldy colour movements, but it doesn't help if I knock the movement holder as well. So we'll just get in there. There we go. And then this one again, bit out of light for me. Really is quite difficult to shine it on those, but there we go. I'll do my best. Okay, that is all of those on that side, and the movement side again 9010. And I can just see a little bit of lint there. We don't want that. And that's not good, is it? We've got a hair. That'll be playing havoc with it. So that is definitely concerning. And I'll try and get it out with the tweezers. But no, that's proper stuck in that plate, isn't it? So there is a problem. I'm going to have to take off the train bridge and replace that, because that's going to be no good at all in there, and that will be causing problems, no doubt. So I'll forget the oiling on camera now. I've always got to do the shock jewel there, but I'll have to remove that plate. So hopefully next time you see it, be back on the timographer with a good trace. Fingers crossed. There we go. A bit of oiling, bit of regulation, and a new mainspring, and we've got a much more acceptable and accurate movement. Now there is some beat error, and that's because it's got a fixed stud, and I really don't fancy my chances meddling with a collet or even the stud itself today. I'm going to leave this one well alone. This is obviously from the 40s, and I think it's looking pretty good. So if we just do the usual couple of different positions, and hopefully we don't really see too much distortion. And there we go, straight away. It just needs some time to settle, and I don't want to give it 10-15 minutes in each one, because that'll take this video up forever. So we're just looking at this moment for consistency. I was hoping the camera would focus on the timographer, but it doesn't want to. And that would be in theory dial down, and again all consistent. The lines are always seem to be going in the right direction, so that's great. So I'm going to call that a win. So let's just get all that keyless on, and then we can fit the toxic dial, and this one is going to be good to go. So I've just got to do the screw for the setting lever, and of course that's on the other side. So some D5. And that's the cannon pinion. Quite stubborn, but it's in. Some 9010, and then a bit D5 or so. Feather pinion here. So now the tricky part of trying to put on the auto wind, but I think I've got it covered. I've already looked at it a little bit and it's fairly rudimentary really. So first thing to do is to place on the rotor, and that's why I've just oiled its pivot there. There we go. And obviously it's got two full extents. So if I take it to that one and then bring in this part, this has like a teeth on it as well, and the idea is to get it on its furthest one, like so. Don't know if you can see that in the middle there, and then when I move it, when it gets to the other point on that other spring at the back here, it's at its furthest. So they are happily in position. We then have the conundrum of, do I fit the spring first, which is a really difficult spring, or do I fit the little the little click lever there to hold the tension. So at the moment I'm tempted to just screw that in first, and then I'll see if I can get the spring in. So the screw's in. Sorry about the light, it's looking a bit dark from where I am. So I've got to try to fit this really long spring and it needs to be fed behind that. And I can see this is going to be a real tricky little blighter. But that's kind of in. And it is holding the tension too. So pleased for that, because all we need is a bridge now that will hold everything else in place. Okay, a couple of screws and we're done. And just to prove to you that's working, if I ratchet, you can see it. If you just look here, you can see that it is actually going to wind the mainspring, all very slowly of course, but there we go. That is an early form of an automatic wind. So the movement is now complete, other than the minute wheel and then, sorry, the hour wheel, and just putting the dial on really. So I'll do that off camera, and then hopefully we can give you now the finishing shots of this beautiful watch. So here is the watch before I did any work to it, and of course it wasn't running. And here is the watch after. And there you go, a massive improvement. Not really. All I've managed to do is just clean the case a little bit and also polywatch the crystal. Of course, all the work has gone on inside this watch, and it's been a pretty interesting journey from a non-working Omega, and Omega being my nemesis, if you like. It seems that I broke my curse with these sort of watches, because this one is now running absolutely as good as I can possibly get it. And yes, we had all that magnetism. We had the worry and woe of all of the radium dial. And then, of course, the mainspring problem, the lint or the piece of hair as well in the jewel hole. I mean, everything was against me. But there we go. I've managed to succeed. And I've got this one running. And I've found a watch that suits the Harris Tweed strap by Vario, of course. But it's a shame, because this is not my watch. I've got to hand it back to Nick Dodd at the end of all of this. And he won't be having the strap, because I really do like it all the same. But there we go. So that's my first automatic Omega on the channel. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, of course, please give the video a thumbs up, because that will help the algorithm no end and promote the channel. And I want to take as many of you down this rabbit hole as I possibly can. Of course, leave comments below. I read every single one. I try to reply to as many as I possibly can. Would really be interested to hear your thoughts on this watch in particular as well. Perhaps you can comment on the handling of the radium or anything else. Be interesting bit of discussion there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing to see more videos like this. If you want to support the channel, of course, I've got some t-shirts for sale. I can't even say it. And I also got the tool link page on my website, so you can click away and buy tools to your heart's content. They're all affiliate links. I do get a kickback, and the money goes towards tools and projects for the channel. So there we go. And of course, always have to mention it, join the Facebook group, Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. If you're into watches or you want to learn how to fix watches, that is a great community. We're all very, very helpful in there. There's 10,000 people across every country in the world. So you're in really good hands with all of those guys there, like-minded people who want to talk about watches, because let's face it, most people don't. My wife can't stand it. My family have got no idea why I like these things, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that thought process. So there we go. More videos coming very soon. Another restoration to follow this one, which I'm about to start filming, and that one should be pretty cool too. So stay tuned for that. Thanks very much. Bye for now.